The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Excuse the rough and gruffness. I feel like Wolfman Jack right now, but haven't been able to get up with the barber. I just set the appointment, so looking forward to getting that done here shortly. Probably will be this weekend. It's just been so hectic of late. A lot of things going on, being pulled in several different directions, but let's get right to the program today. I love Tuesdays because on Tuesdays, there's really not a lot to talk about in the National Football League. You know, that's the players' day off, and so not a lot of happenings going on, just a lot of gossip and a lot of he said going on Tuesday. So it's always nice to have this program on Tuesday because whatever I have on my chest, I can get it off on Tuesday because there's really not a lot to talk about. You know, go over the Monday night game and give some, you know, analysis and recap of that. And basically, you got the whole program to do whatever it is I feel like I need to do. And so that's what I'm going to do today. I'm not really going to talk extensive about the game. Of course, you know I'm a happy camper today. We were able to get it done. And this game really solidifies the Washington Redskins, my boys, as a legitimate contender to make the playoffs this season. And so I feel really good. And I told you I felt good going into that game. I thought we could get it done. I felt like we were going to get it done. And we got it done. And that's what... And that's something that, you know, really made me feel good. We'll talk about that in the Redskins report. That's what that show is for, so I won't really go into extensive details. Just know the Redskins were able to get the win 17-16 over the Giants. They're now 6-6 on the season. The Giants are now 7-5, and look out. You know, don't look now. But the Redskins and the Cowboys are just one game behind the New York Giants in the NFC East. Forget about the wild card. This NFC East race is wide open, and I'll leave it at that. Now, there were several things that I said I wanted to talk about today. Didn't have time to do it on Monday because Monday is such a hectic day, a lot of things to get to. You don't really have time to squeeze in things that you think are important, and so I saved them for Tuesdays most times, and that's what I'm doing today. I wanted to talk about the Bears' offense. I didn't get a chance to really talk about it yesterday. I should have, but I didn't, so I want to talk about that today. And I teased yesterday about mistakes and how I feel like that's a category that needs to be kept in the NFL, and I'm going to keep a tally on it. Well, I'm going to tell you what mistakes are, what the criteria is for mistakes, and we'll get into that just a little bit later. But let's start with the Chicago Bears offense. This offense, and remember, we were supposed to find out a lot about the Bears, you know, about 3 weeks ago against the Houston Texans on Sunday Night Football. Remember when we talked about that? So we never really got to talk about the offense. We never really got to see what this offense was about because I thought the litmus test for this Bears team, this Bears offense, was going to be that Texans game. It rained. It was an ugly, sloppy game. You never really got to really measure up either one of those teams. You really couldn't pull anything away from that game other than the Texans play better in inclement weather because their game is more tailored towards it because of their running attack and that play action fake that they run off of it. So you really weren't able to gain any valuable intel from that game. I really haven't seen what the Bears can do because, like I've talked about all season long, this Bears offense has been augmented by this defense that's been scoring points, getting turnovers at an alarming rate, helping this Bears team score points. What happens when you don't get turnovers? When you have to play a straight-up game for 60 minutes and your offense has to come through for you? Can you get it done? We saw what happened last week against Seattle, a pretty good defense in the Seattle Seahawks. They were only able to muster 17 points, 3 of them coming at the end of the game when they had to have it, and Jay Cutler was able to make a couple of throws that was insane, especially that one to Brandon Marshall at the end of the game. Don't know how the Seahawks had that kind of breakdown in coverage at that time in the game, but nonetheless, they were able to get the field goal to send it to overtime, but they were only able to score 17 points. And you saw what happened to them in San Francisco again. They had Jason Campbell. That was a bad night for that Chicago Bears team as a whole. Even if Jay Cutler was playing, though, they wouldn't have been able to protect him. That was a night that didn't matter who was at quarterback. that offensive line just struggled that night. So I'm curious as to what this Bears offense can really do. And I think that is the one question you have to have about this Bears team, because we know Brandon Marshall and Jay Cutler and that hookup, that connection is for real. It's legit, and it's a lethal combination. Once you get past that, though, what does this Bears offense have to offer? You know, Devin Hester has been banged up. He really hasn't been a factor even when he's been healthy. Alshon Jeffrey, the young draft pick out of South Carolina, he's been hurt all season long. Really haven't seen what he can do. Earl Bennett just got injured, so he may miss this week's game against the Minnesota Vikings. Don't know if they'll have him available for this game. So you don't really know what you're getting out of this Bears offense. They don't have a tight end. Kellen Davis, big 6'7", 6'8" tight end out of Michigan State. He's never really blossomed into the guy that he thought that he could be. And they ran a good tight end, a perfectly good tight end out of town, did Mike Martz when he was the offensive coordinator of this Bears team, and Greg Olsen. And so they don't have any tight end really to speak of. You look at the running back position, they went out and got Michael Bush. Not sure that they're getting out of him what they thought they were going to get. I don't know what they thought they were getting, but Forte really hasn't had the season. And it's funny, when running backs get their money, seems like that season when they get paid, if they have to struggle and fight for their money, they don't have the productive season that you expect them to have after getting paid. You saw it with Chris Johnson. You're seeing it with Matt Forte, it seems like. But I think it's a lot to do with this offensive line. They're not opening up holes for him, but I think the Bears need to be more creative. Get Matt Forte out on the edge, out in passing routes. He's a dynamic pass catcher out of the backfield. He might be one of the best in the National Football League at catching the football naturally as a running back. You know, he caught a touchdown pass on Sunday against the Seahawks, running a slant. They need to do more of that with Matt Forte. He can bring something to this offense, an added dimension that they don't have right now, because you can line him up out wide, get him single covered with a linebacker, with a safety. He'll win that matchup every time. There's not going to be many safeties and linebackers in this league that's going to be able to match up one-on-one with Matt Forte. So I think they need to get him out there. Let him run some wheel routes. Let him run some out and ups. Let him run some stick routes. Let him be creative and get out there, use his athleticism and his quickness and his shiftiness to make guys miss after he catches the football, make some things happen out of space, run some screens. These are things that the Bears did well a year ago. They need to get back to that, because I think this offense is stagnant right now. And I'm worried about this offense because the Bears defense is good enough for them to make it far in the playoffs. I won't say, make it out of the NFC, because I'm not sure about this team as a whole. But they're good enough defensively to make some things happen. But offensively, they got to get it together, and they got to start playing better football. We'll see in the next coming weeks what they're able to do, because they're going to play some good defenses. Minnesota, no slouch on defense. They have to go to Minnesota this week. Want to see what they're going to be able to do there. They have Green Bay again. Green Bay isn't the best defense in the world, but they're a solid defense. Want to see what they're going to be able to do there. Want to see what this Bears offense can do when you're not getting turnovers, constantly being helped out by the defense and by the opposing team turning it over. What do you do when you just have to take the ball at your own 11 and drive 89 yards and score a touchdown? When you have to take the ball at your own 15, drive 85 yards for a touchdown. When you have to take the ball at the 20-yard line and go 80 yards and drive for a touchdown consistently in a game, and not get the ball at the other team's 37-yard line and just have to get a touchdown from 37 yards out. Or you don't get a touchdown defensively from your defense, or 2 touchdowns from your defense. When you have to score 24 points on your own, can this offense do it? Because I'm not sure right now that they can. We'll see moving forward. Let's talk about mistakes, okay? I had an epiphany on Sunday watching these games. And yeah, I've been watching them all season long, but it really hit me on Sunday because I saw more mistakes, more missed opportunities in these football games than it seems like any week this season. And it's been 13 weeks thus far in the National Football League, but it seems like in week 13 in particular, I saw a lot of squandered opportunities by football teams. A lot of mistakes were being made on the football field. And mistakes are greater than penalties, because a penalty is a sanction that has a set amount of yards that comes with that penalty, except for pass interference, of course, as we know. That's the only subjective penalty that you get that has a different varying yardage total that you can get as a result of that penalty. But all of the other penalties, it's 5, it's 10, it's 15. You know what the penalty is and the yardage that comes from that infraction. So this is different. Mistakes are different because a mistake can be several different things. I'll talk about the criteria for a mistake. There's 10 different criteria for a mistake. 10 things that legislate as a mistake in the National Football League, according to me. And I'm going to keep this stat moving forward because I think that these really impact the end of the game. And you'll see what I'm talking about once I give you these 10 mistakes. And I'm going to start tallying them every single week because I think they're important. And I think you'll be amazed at how many of these things really change the game and they make a difference. So let's get into mistakes. Mistake number 1. Any act that negates change of possession. Now this is the biggest one to me of all of them because when you get a turnover, we all know turnovers are huge in the National Football League in the course of a game. You know, most times when you win a turnover battle, you win the game. It's not all the time. You know, teams get away with turning the football over once, maybe twice, and the other team doesn't turn it over at all, but you still are able to win the game. But in the course of a game, when a turnover occurs, momentum swings, you know, points might be scored, points might be taken off the board. You just never know. So when you get a turnover and it's negated by, say, a penalty, that's a big play in the game because that's deflating. You get a turnover, everyone on your defense is excited, and then you see the yellow hanky on the floor, and the referee yells, holding, you know, defense number 25, and all of a sudden that interception is not only negated, they get a first down, they go down and they get points. That hurts. And so I'll give you a few examples. On Sunday, Von Miller had a hands to the face. The Denver Broncos was able to pick off a pass from Josh Freeman early in this game. And really, I thought that the Buccaneers did a good job of hanging in early. And this pick early in the game was in Tampa Bay territory. If the Broncos get this pick, Peyton Manning is able to take it and get 7 off of it to a different ball game early on. They might blow them out early in this game. Instead, Von Miller, hands to the face. Buccaneers keep possession of the football. Different game. Broncos ultimately win, but it's a different game. You look at Jared Allen versus the Packers. The Vikings are able to get a pick. They called Jared Allen for a questionable roughing the passer penalty. Packers get a field goal. They lose the game by 9. You take that field goal off the scoreboard. It's a 6-point game. It's one possession game. One score game. And those are the differences between a team winning, having a chance to win, and losing the game. Because your whole mindset changes when you're down 2 scores versus 1. And so things like that impact the game. And an act can be anything. It doesn't have to be a penalty. It can be just simply dropping a pass that you should catch, an interception that you should catch. You know, we saw earlier in the season, Browns, first game of the season against the Eagles, had a chance to pick Michael Vick off in the final minutes of the game, latter stages of this game, and secure a victory. They get this pick in the end zone. They win the game. The Eagles don't have any more timeouts. They take 2 knees. They win the game. We didn't know the Eagles were going to be a terrible team this season. That was the first game of the season. A lot of people had the Eagles being one of the better teams in the NFC coming into the season. The Browns are able to win that game. Who knows what their season looks like? Instead, he drops the pick, goes right through his hands. The next play, Michael Vick finds Clay Harbor in the end zone. Eagles win the game. Browns lose. And as it's written, you see what happens. So the biggest one to date, though, was the Asante Samuel drop in the Super Bowl. We all remember 2007. Patriots are 18-0, have a chance to go 19-0, be the only team in NFL history in a 16-game slate to go undefeated for a whole season and be perfect. Asante Samuel has a chance. Eli Manning makes an errant throw on the sidelines at the end of this game, right before the Tyree play happens. You know, a lot of people forget about this, but Asante Samuel has this pick. It's an easy pick. All he has to do is catch it. He's so worried about getting his feet down that he takes his eye off the football, looks at his feet to make sure that he's going to get his feet inbounds, takes his eye off the ball, drops the football. We all know what happens. We all know the end of that story. Plaxico Burress catches the touchdown pass. Giants go on to win that game and spoil the perfect season. Maybe, you know, spoils the greatest team in NFL history. Instead of them being the best team in NFL history, they're just an 18-1 team. But Negating a change of possession is huge in the National Football League. That's a mistake. Okay? You go to mistake number 2. Any defensive penalty that negates a gain over 15 yards. How often do you see a team, run for 17 yards on a play, holding, it gets called back? We're talking about 27 yards of field position. It took me a long time to realize how big 15 yards is in the National Football League. You think about it and you're like, 15 yards, it's a 100-yard field. What is 15 yards? Just get a personal foul penalty and see what it does. If you're at the 39-yard line and you get a personal foul penalty, all of a sudden you're in the other team's territory. If you are in your own territory and you get a personal foul penalty from the opposing team, all of a sudden now you're in their territory. And this is a real drive. You're a first down away from getting points. 15 yards is that big in the National Football League. So imagine you ripping off a 15-yard run, a 17-yard run, a 22-yard run, or getting a 27-yard pass and then having the hanky end up on the ground, see the referee call holding or call hands to the face or call illegal shift. And now you have to go back 5 yards. Now you have to go back 10 yards. Now you have to go back 15 yards because of a chop block. It diminishes everything that you just did on that play. And it kills drives. It kills the morale. It kills the momentum. It kills any kind of tempo that you had. And now you're having to work even harder to pick up a first down. When you see a penalty, and this is just a penalty, you're thinking of it, it's just a penalty. It's more than just a penalty because when you see a penalty, a team might have 7 penalties for 78 yards. You don't see what those penalties are. You just see 7 penalties, 78 yards. If you want to take it a step further and you see each and every single penalty that they had, it'll just tell you holding, pass interference, legal contact. It won't tell you what that play negated. That holding penalty on offense on your left tackle might have negated a 37-yard gain and made it 3rd and 20 instead of 1st and 10 from your opposing team's 15-yard line. Now all of a sudden it's 2nd or 3rd and 20 from your own 37. That's what a penalty like this can do. When you negate a 15-yard gain or more, it's huge. So that's the number 2 mistake that you can make in a game. Number 3, any defensive penalty that gives a first down on 3rd and 10 or longer. That is a backbreaker. You work so hard on 1st and 2nd down to get a team in 3rd and 10 or longer. Once you get a team in 3rd and long, you have to get off the field. You got to get off the field. You get a team in 3rd and long, the chances of them picking up a first down are slim to none. If it's 3rd and 13, most teams won't pick it up. If it's 3rd and 17, most teams give up on 3rd and 17, 3rd and 15. They'll just simply hand off a draw, throw a screen pass, see what they can get off the field and punt the football. So when you have a team in 3rd and 13, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 10, and you're able to get a stop only to see a flag be thrown and see illegal contact, holding, hands to the face, roughing the passer. You see something like that, it is demoralizing on so many different levels. You work so hard to get to 3rd and long only to have them get a first down not because of them executing you, out executing you, but because someone couldn't do what they needed to do, restrain themselves from making a critical error that gives another team a first down. And a lot of times, you have this happen in the course of a game. It comes back to bite you. You give a team a first down on 3rd and 15, and they end up taking that drive down and getting 7 points. That is a backbreaker. And a lot of times, it costs you in the long run. So that's the 3rd mistake. You look at the 4th mistake. Any offsides penalty that results in a free play that yields a gain of over 20 yards. You see people jump offsides all the time. But the worst one is the one that happens right as the ball is snapped. You see the flag as a quarterback. The elite quarterbacks in the league, they're going downfield. They're taking a shot. If they have a 9 route dialed up anywhere on the field at that point, they're taking a shot because now what can happen is you pick it off, it doesn't matter. You pick it off, they're getting the football back. So there's nothing to lose. Now you feel a little bit more bold about throwing into double coverage. Whereas you might just check it down and take 2 yards. And so a free play is so big because now a team gets bold. Now I'm just going to take a shot. Now they can get pass interference. Now they can get a big gain. You give them the opportunity to make a play that maybe otherwise they wouldn't make. In the Packers game against the Vikings on Sunday, prime example. The Vikings jumped off sides at least 4 or 5 times in this game, resulting in about 3 or 4 free plays for Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers is a veteran quarterback. He gets it. He understands that it's a free play. I have nothing to lose on this play. So what does Aaron Rodgers do? He chucks it up top. He goes up top. James Jones, he's covered. He's blanketed. But what happens is he throws the football anyway. James Jones goes and makes a play, snatches the ball over, touchdown. That might be a pass that Aaron Rodgers isn't willing to throw if that's not a free play. He might say, hey, that guy's covered. I'm not going to throw it up. That pass might be intercepted. Instead, it's a free play. If it's intercepted, who cares? We get the football back with a free 5 yards attached to it. So you give teams more confidence. You allow them to be bold and try to make a play that otherwise they might not even attempt. So I think that's a mistake that goes unnoticed. Because you look at the stat sheet, just says offsides. It's just a 5-yard penalty. But it's so much more than that if it results in a 27-yard gain that otherwise might not have happened. You might get a pass interference on that play because he just threw it up for grabs. The defender's not looking, runs right into the receiver, first down. 27 yards because of a 5-yard penalty. That's what I'm talking about. Mistake number 5. Any act that takes points off the board or helps put them on it. This is a big one too, because anytime we're talking about points, and this directly affects the game. You know, the other ones so far, with the turnovers, I feel like turnovers are huge in the National Football League. But all the other ones, you still have work to do after the mistake occurs. There's still work to be done. This one here, this is direct. Either you're taking points off the board or you're putting them on the board. So this affects the game directly. And so this is a huge one too. And what I mean by any act that helps put points on the board or takes them off, you get a pass interference in the end zone. And let's say your team is at the 50-yard line. They're at midfield. And your quarterback just chucks it up in the air in the end zone. Defender's not looking. He's face guarding. He's molesting the receiver. They throw the flag in the end zone. Ball's at the 1-yard line. You're helping put points on the board for the other team when you do that as a defensive back. That's a mistake. That's just not a penalty. Yeah, the penalty says pass interference, and yeah, it shows up as a 50-yard penalty on the stat sheet. But what it doesn't say is that with that 50-yard penalty came 7 points. On the next play, that team was able to run a quarterback sneak, or their running back was able to plow over the top for a 1-yard touchdown, put 7 points on the board. That's what that penalty doesn't say. That's a huge mistake in a game. You talk about taking points off the board. You know, how many times have we seen a guy run a punt or a kickoff back for a touchdown only to have it called back because someone had a block in the back? Or this isn't limited to just players. What about coaches? You know, what about a coach calling a timeout, icing a kicker as they kick a field goal? They miss. But because that coach called that timeout right before that field goal was kicked, didn't count. They get to kick it over. They make the field goal. You lose the football game. How many times have we seen that occur? It's not just limited to players. Coaches can be involved with mistakes as well. We'll talk more about coaches making mistakes because coaches make them all the time. You know, officials aren't immune either. Officials make mistakes. You call that bad pass interference play, it's a good play by the defender. You get a little flag happy. You throw the flag, pass interference in the end zone. 1st and goal from the 1. That's a mistake on the part of the official. Again, doesn't show up on the stat sheet that that official made a bad call. And again, it's subjective. What we might see as a bad call, the NFL might say, hey, that was a good call. But we all know a bad penalty when we see one. And an official can make a mistake that impacts the game greatly. We saw the replacement officials make them all the time impact the outcome of the game. It happens. That's a mistake that you have to be aware of because taking points off the board, putting them on the board, it's tough to overcome that in the National Football League. You can't have that happen if you're playing this game. You got to be aware of taking points off the board and putting them on, especially if you're on the defensive side of football. Got to be able to be aware. And Probably the biggest one when talking about taking points off the board is turnovers in the red zone. You know, when you take points off the board, it's crucial. It's crucial. Number 6. Mistake number 6. The frivolous misuse of second half timeouts. This one is big because I feel like timeouts in the first half, hey, use them if you got them. You know, even if you get a drive going late in the half and you don't have any timeouts, so what? So what? Make do with what you got. Try to get a field goal. You don't get it because you don't have any timeouts. So be it. Second half, different story. Second half, your timeouts are like precious jewels. You take as much care of them as humanly possible. They're a precious jewel. You take care of your timeouts and you guard them with your life. You don't use a timeout unless you have to. Sometimes, and it's rare. You hate to get a 5-yard penalty for delay a game. But if it's 2nd and 1, I'm like, to hell with calling a timeout. Don't you burn my timeout on 2nd and 1, 2nd and 2. You take that 5-yard penalty, especially if it's a close game. I need my timeouts. You don't know what you'll need them for later on. You may need it to go on a 2-minute drive and win the football game. You may need those timeouts to stop the other team from running out the clock to get you the football back to win the game or tie it up. You don't know what you need those timeouts for, but timeouts are valuable in the second half. And when you're burning them because you couldn't get the play in on time, or you're burning them because you got guys running all over the field, they don't know where to line up, miscommunication, you got to burn one. Those are vital and instrumental in teams losing games at the end. We saw it on Monday Night Football. The Giants, even though the Redskins were able to get that last first down, run out the clock, the Giants had already used one of their timeouts. So an additional 40 seconds ran off the clock. So even if the Redskins weren't able to get that last first down and they had to punt the football, the Giants would have only gotten the football back with about 24, maybe 22 seconds left on the clock instead of a minute and 2 seconds because they didn't have that last time out. They had to burn one early in the second half. That's a big mistake. You can't use your timeouts frivolously in the second half. You have to save your timeouts. It is vital that you have your timeouts at the end of the game. You never know what you'll need them for. Mistake number 7. All right? Any punt that doesn't travel 30 yards. Any punt that leaves a punter's foot should travel at least a net of 30 yards. At least. Okay? There's no reason for a punt to leave a punter's foot and not travel at least 30 yards. You shank a ball and it only goes 15 yards. That is terrible. That is a mistake that's going to cost you. If you punt the football from your own 17-yard line and it goes 27 yards, that means the other team is getting the football at the 44-yard line. Your 44-yard line. They're already a first down away from field goal range. If you got a good field goal kicker, you don't even have to get a first down at that point. You get 7 yards, that's a 54-yard field goal. And in this day and age, with the kickers that are in the National Football League, that's a makeable field goal for probably 60% of the league right now. I mean, this isn't 1990 where 54 yards is a huge and a terribly long field goal. Kickers are knocking 54 yarders down like we drink water. And so, punters not being able to do the one thing that they have to do. Punters may have 2 jobs, maybe 3, depending on how your team uses you. Your team might utilize you as a kickoff specialist, kicking the ball off. They may use you to hold the ball on field goal attempts. But your main and chief responsibility on the football team is to punt the football. If you can't do that adequately, if you can't kick the ball 30 yards every time you kick it, I have a serious problem with you, and you probably don't need to be on my roster. Because there shouldn't be a time when you kicking the ball less than 30 yards is acceptable. Because even if you're going to pooch punt it, you should be kicking it longer than 30 yards. Because if you're kicking it less than 30 yards, that means you shouldn't be kicking it in the first place. That needs to be a field goal attempt, or you need to be going for it. That means you're in no man's land. But any other way, you should be kicking the ball further than 30 yards. You can't do that, we have a problem, and it's going to impact this game. Mistake number 8. Failed attempt at connecting with an open receiver 30 yards down the field or more, or in the end zone. This is a big one. because receivers don't get wide open in the National Football League often. It doesn't happen often. This was probably one of the ones that made me want to come up with this list the most, because I swear I seen more guys running wide open in secondaries on Sunday than I've probably seen all season long, and I saw quarterbacks either miss them or I saw receivers just flat out drop the football with no one around. I mean, it was a lot of big plays left on the table, left on the field on Sunday. Watching the Dolphins game. Your Dolphins team, you're playing the best team in your division at home in the New England Patriots. You're trying to climb back into the divisional race. It's not over. For all intents and purposes, it is over. But to you, you still have a shot. You beat them. You have to play them one more time in Foxborough. You win this game. Who knows? The Patriots may just fall flat on their face down the stretch, and you might be able to make a thing of it. Probably not. We all know that there's a 99.7% chance that you're done in that division. But you're not thinking that way. You just want to win games, and you can still find a way to crawl back into this wild card race. Why not? Why not us? That should be the thinking that you have. Why not us? But you need to beat this Patriots team. They're way better than you are. So any opportunities that you get to make plays, you have to take advantage of them. If you're the Dolphins, you have to take advantage of them. You can't leave them on the field. Brian Hartline is running wide open. When I say wide open, I'm talking about 45, 50, 60 yards down the field by himself. There's not a Patriot defender in sight. All Tannehill has to do is hit him. Even if he has to slow down for it, he probably still scores. That's how open he was. Aqib Talib bit on a double move, thought he had help, didn't have any safety help at all. He was wide open. Tannehill overthrows him by 5 yards. We're talking a touchdown here. This is 7 points. 60-yard touchdown pass. Missed him. Okay. Come back to the same play later on in the game. Brian Hartline's open again. This time he's not wide open. He's just open. And what I mean by open, I classify open as having 2 steps on a defender. 2 steps or more on a defender is open in the National Football League. You don't get that often. He was open. He was about 3 steps away from the defender. This time, Tannehill, he overcompensates for the mistake he made earlier in the game and underthrows him by 2 yards this time. Gives the defender a chance to get in the way and complete pass. 2 opportunities to either score touchdowns or get big gains that lead to touchdowns or lead to points. They didn't get either one of them. 0 for 2 in this game. That loses you football games. Big plays in the game. Mistakes in the game. You look at another one. I give you another prime example of a mistake like that. This time wasn't a 45-yard pass. Wasn't a 30-yard pass. Wasn't even a 25-yard pass. About a 20-yard pass in the end zone. Wide open. But he missed him. You're taking points off the board. Charlie Batch, as we all watched that Ravens and Steelers game, Mike Wallace is wide open in the back of the end zone. There's not a Raven defender within 4 yards of him with a radius around him of about 7 yards. There's not a Raven defender around him at any direction in the back of the end zone. Mike Wallace is wide open. Charlie Batch has an easy throw. Just put it on a rope with a little bit of height to it, but put it on a rope. Back of the end zone, Mike Wallace catches a touchdown pass. Charlie Batch airmails this ball by about 7 yards. I mean, it's not even close. Hits the sound guy for the NFL right in his little sound barrier, sound capturer. Hits him right in the little device that he's holding that captures the sound that we hear on Sundays. It wasn't close. That's a missed opportunity at a touchdown. If I'm not mistaken, the Steelers had to kick a field goal. That's a 4-point swing. You gotta have those opportunities be cashed in. You can't miss on that. The Steelers lose that game. That's one of the plays you point at and look at and say, yeah, Charlie Batch makes that play. We probably win this football game. Luckily enough for them, didn't come down to that. They end up winning the football game anyway. But gotta have those plays. Mistake number 9. Not staying in bounds or an incomplete pass during 4-minute offense. This is huge. We saw this in effect on Sunday. And again, a lot of these mistakes occurred on Sunday, which made me come up with this. I had the epiphany because I actually saw these things occurring right before my eyes on Sunday. Watching the Detroit Lions and the Indianapolis Colts. A game that was robbed from me. It was snatched from right under me. In less than 5 minutes, the Detroit Lions was able to blow a 12-point lead. So how does that happen, you say? How do you blow a 12-point lead less than 5 minutes to go in the game? Simple. You don't run an efficient 4-minute offense. That's the easiest way to blow a lead. Don't eat up clock. Don't make them use their timeouts. Give them opportunities to stop the clock without them having to use a timeout. This can go for coaches. This can go for players. Players have to stay in bounds. It's a run. Your coach calls a run. They string it out. The defense strings it out to the sideline. It's your job to stay in bounds. Whether it's going to be a 2-yard loss or a 2-yard gain, you got to stay in bounds. You can't string it out and go run out of bounds. You can't allow that to happen. You have to stay in bounds. In this particular game and in this particular instance, the Lions decided it was a good idea to call 2 consecutive pass plays. Okay, fine. You don't have to limit your offense to just runs in a 4-minute offense. That's not what I'm saying. What you have to do, though, is high efficiency throws. What I mean by that is throws that have a great chance, a 85% plus chance of being completed. We're talking about screens, bubble screens, slants, outs, stops, curls, hitches, things that you know are going to be completed for the most part. Something safe. They decided to run 2 plays, 2 incompletions. One, in their defense, was to Calvin Johnson. He dropped it. One that hit him right in the hands. However, again, that's Megatron. He had 13 catches on the day. Not going to chastise him for dropping 1 ball when they're throwing it to you on every other play. So, bad coaching. Bad coaching. You look at the 49ers game. Bad 4-minute offense. They have the Rams beat. They have the Rams dead to right. It's 10-2. The Rams haven't scored a touchdown, let alone a field goal all game. You're at your own 11-yard line. Why are you running triple option, which requires a pitch? Something that can go wrong. Just run simple offense. Just hand the ball off to Frank Gore. Why are we trying to get cute? Ends up being a touchdown. You lose the football game in overtime. Lions, 2 incompletions, stops the clock, gives Andrew Luck the football back. With 3 minutes, they lose the football game. Really simple. You don't execute in the 4-minute offense, you give yourself a great chance of losing the football game. That's why that's the number 9 mistake that you can make in National Football League. Finally, the number 10 mistake that you can make. The number 10 mistake that is made is not getting points in the red zone. That's not an option in the National Football League. You get inside the 20, you get inside the opposing team's 20-yard line, you're in the red zone. I like to call it the money zone. You need to be money in the red zone. It's called the money zone for a reason. Because it's points in the bank already. Once you get inside the 20, your field goal kicker shouldn't be missing 37-yard field goals. And that's as far as a field goal can be once you get to the 20-yard line. It's 37 yards. Your kicker shouldn't miss a 37-yard field goal. And your offense should be able to get either a touchdown or a 3. So, that's the money zone. Because it's supposed to be points in the bank. You get in the red zone, you can't turn the football over. You can't come away with no points. So, I'm telling coaches, it's 4th and inches, it's 4th and 1. Yeah, sometimes in the course of a game, in the context of the game, you know what you're going through. You know what your team is going through. You got a good feel for your team. That's what good coaches have. They have the pulse of the team. Yeah, you can go for it. You better get it, though. Because if you're in the red zone and you don't, you just took points off the board. So you have to know the pulse of your team and be able to say, and you can never say how things are going to go with 100% certainty, but it better be 99.9% sure that we can pick this thing up. Because if you don't, you're taking points off the board. You take points off the board, it comes back to haunt you a lot of times in the end. You look at the Vikings against the Packers. The biggest play in this game wasn't the Adrian Peterson touchdown run, wasn't Aaron Rodgers making plays, escaping the pocket, extending the play. It wasn't a Mason Crosby field goal. It was a Christian Ponder interception from about the 7-yard line that took points off the board. That was the biggest play in that game. You go from a chance for the Vikings to take the lead. You go from a chance for the Vikings to cut into the Packer lead to turn the football over and getting no points. You can't have that happen. You want to win this game? You're on the road. Division leader, Green Bay Packers, team you're chasing in that division. You want to win that game on the road? Get points. You turn it over in the red zone, you're asking to lose the football game. Because what you just have done is you erase 3 or 7 points off the board. And not only did you just do that, you just given that team momentum. Anytime the defense is able to hold and not give up any points in the red zone, that is a huge boost for a defense. That's a huge boost for a team. That is a momentum changer. That is a game changer. Because how many times have we seen a team go for it on 4th down from the 1-yard line, from the 2-yard line? Run the football, don't get it. Defense comes racing off the field. They're yelling, they're screaming. Defensive coaches are jumping up and down. That's a huge play in the game. You just stopped the team 4 times from inside the 5-yard line from getting points. They kick a field goal, you feel good about stopping them from getting 7. But they still got a field goal. They still got points. They still came away with something on that drive. You come away with nothing. You turn it over. You miss a field goal. Your coach decides to go for it. You don't get it. You are in some trouble now because you just changed the complexion of this ball game. Not just by not getting any points, but by giving the other team momentum. Now, they might go 97 yards and score a touchdown after you didn't get any points. It's huge. It's a huge deal in the course of a game. Those are the 10 mistakes that you can make. And I saw it all too often on Sunday, and it made me come up with this criteria. And I'm going to start charting these as I watch games on Sunday and report to you what I find, because I tell you what, I guarantee you the team that makes the least amount of mistakes will win the game 70% of the time. I mean, these things are huge in the course of a game. And you don't see it by penalties. You don't see it by turnovers. Because a turnover is a turnover. It's exactly what it says. It's a turnover. Change of possession. It doesn't tell you where it occurred. It doesn't tell you, what that meant in the course of the game. It's just a turnover. You fumble going in for a score at the 12-yard line like Alfred Morris did against the Giants. That's huge. The Giants, you take points off the board, and the Giants were able to take that possession, go down the field, and get a field goal. Instead of the Redskins getting a touchdown, taking the lead, and really putting pressure on the Giants, instead, they get nothing out of that possession, and the Giants get a field goal. That's huge. That's huge. But a turnover doesn't say that. When you look at the stat sheet, it just says turnover. It doesn't tell you where it occurred. It doesn't tell you what happened there after that turnover. It just says turnover. 1. You get a 15-yard penalty for roughing the kicker. And that's another one. You rough the kicker on 4th and 8. First down. That happened to the Dolphins on Sunday against the Patriots. Patriots are punting the football. They rough the kicker. Patriots get a first down. They go down and get a touchdown. All of a sudden, instead of 7-3, it's 14-3. Now you're in a deep hole. Those are the kind of things that change games. That's a mistake. That's not just a personal foul, roughing the kicker penalty. That's a mistake that has an impact on the game, because that's not just a 15-yard penalty. That's a 15-yard penalty that extended a drive that was over, and instead of a drive being 5 plays, 25 yards, and a punt, now that drive is 11 plays, 77 yards, touchdown. Now you're down 11 instead of being down 4. Big difference in the game. Now you're in a hole that you might not be able to crawl out of. Changes the whole complexion of the game. And that's the difference between a penalty, a turnover, and a mistake. So that's a touchdown. Go ahead. Throw it up. I'm going to tack on this quick extra point. I just gave you mistakes. I gave you the criteria for mistakes. There's 10, and I just gave you the criteria for it. Watching the Bears game against the Seahawks on Sunday, Earl Bennett, wide open down the field. Again, you don't get wide open in the NFL often. When I'm talking about wide open, I'm talking about there's not guys around you. Jay Cutler throws a frozen rope to Earl Bennett 60 yards down the field. We know Jay Cutler has one of the most strongest arms in the National Football League. Earl Bennett is wide open down the field. He's behind the defense. He's running towards the end zone. Jay Cutler lays it out there beautifully right there. Right in his hands. Earl Bennett bobbles the football. He has 2 chances to catch this football. If he catches it cleanly the first time, he walks in the end zone. Touchdown Bears. He bobbles it, dives on the ground trying to catch it. He drops it. No catch. Those are the types of plays that win you ball games. You don't make them, they can come back to bite you in the end. In this case, it did. This was a close ball game. You knew it was going to be close. a game like that, even if he's able to catch it on the second bobble, and they're at the 12-yard line of the Seattle Seahawks, now you're in the red zone. You're in the money zone. You either get 3 or you get a touchdown. 3 or a touchdown would have been the difference in this game of the Bears winning or losing. Instead, he doesn't make the play. The Bears ultimately lose the game in overtime, and that's what a mistake can do to you. It's a full-out sprint. Now, with 4 games left, finish line's right here. Everybody can see it. They see it. Finish line's right there. It's a dead sprint to that finish line. It's a dead sprint. Everyone's down with their head down, and they're going. You know, they're not coming up for air because it's a sprint. First 6 participants in each conference is going to the postseason. They're getting to play extra football. Everyone else, nice season, go home. See you next year. It's a sprint now. You can't afford to make mistakes. Mistakes are a cramp that slows you down from getting to that finish line. Mistakes are an untied shoelace that you trip over that stops you from getting to that finish line. Mistakes are the difference between you sprinting and not stopping and getting to that finish line first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth, or you not making it to that finish line until 8th or 9th, 10th. You're not making it to the postseason. Mistakes are that big. They're that impactful in the game. And it can be the difference between you winning a game, losing a game, going to the playoffs, and not going to the playoffs. I want you to start looking for these. I've given you the 10 mistakes, the criteria for the mistakes. There's 10 of them. I've given them to you. Start looking for them. You'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see how they impact the game. Of course, I'm going to be charting them myself, but I want you to look for them too because they're huge. They impact the game. They matter. You'll see what I'm talking about. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for joining me in the lab room. As always, there's many ways to check out the show. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on YouTube. Drop something in the inbox, in the lab room at gmail.com. That's the inbox. On Facebook, in the lab room is the Facebook page. Like it. Every video that I've ever done on the page. Also on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. At in the lab room is the Twitter handle. I'm always on Twitter. I'm always on Facebook. I'm always online. You know, hit me up, man. I'd love to hear from you. I communicate with guys all the time. I love it. It's what I do. So we're all fans here. It's all love. Thank you for supporting the show. And as always, want to see you back here tomorrow. Same time, same place. Take care of yourself. And it's the holiday season. Do something. You know, go out, shop, you know, decorate. Do something. Don't be a Scrooge. See you tomorrow. Have a good one.